And that, my friends, that's how you cut mitered box corners. Well, I mean, sort of. It's kind of the basic idea of what you're doing. I mean, if you really want to know how to do it, check the show notes, a link for a guy who actually knows woodworking. There's a fantastic, really long, very detailed tutorial of how to actually cut a mitered box frame, and it's fantastic. But I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. That's not me. I'm still figuring all this crazy power tool stuff out. But today I want to solve a problem I've had for a while when building my robots, specifically Micro Flash, my 3-pound combat robot. I've had a lot of trouble with the Jigsaw in terms of, well, from things kind of shaking apart to getting a little bit overzealous with cutting. I mean, I've kind of struggled to get a nice setup for clamping down materials for using the Jigsaw. And well, that is what I'm trying to solve today by building a nice little stand for cutting out small pieces, in particular beetle weight combat robot frames and other things like that. So let's get started with this next woodworking project. And just like last time, if you want to see the basic gist of what I'm building in terms of sizes, measurements, things like that, check the link in the show notes, take you over to tabletopbattlefield.com. I actually got a 3D model this time, fancy, of what I'm building with all the measurements, all that fun stuff over there. The basic idea though is I'm building a table, but the top is open. So I can kind of clamp the material down all around the edges of this table, but the inside being open, I'm going to be able to use a jigsaw there to cut out my pieces without any interference. And hopefully, by being able to clamp the workpiece down on multiple sides relatively close together, it'll reduce the whole thing of the thing vibrating itself apart or some other weird thing like that like I've had during the various builds with the jigsaw. To be fair, I probably shouldn't get used to my hand being here even if the saw is off and it can't hurt me right now. It's probably not a good place to put my hand. But anyway, while that glue is drying, let's go ahead and start building the kind of stand or the frame portion of the jigsaw stand, which means more cutting some 1x4s as well as 2x4s. So when it comes to height of this particular stand, it's kind of up to you. I know my plan is say 30 inches, but that's kind of short. I ended up building mine to be 36 inches tall, and I found that's a pretty good comfortable height for using it with a cordless jigsaw. When it comes to assembling the legs, I'm laying them down on the ground here. And one thing I have done, actually, I've marked off where I'm going to put the screws on the 19-inch 1x4 to kind of make up the supports that go around the legs of the stand. And why I've done that is therefore when I'm drilling in the screws later on, as long as I line these boards up correctly while they're pre-marked, I won't accidentally drill 2 screws into the same spot and, cause wonderful problems like that. I haven't done that yet, by the way. You'd think I would for how kind of scared I am about it, but because of the fact I've taken enough precautions, I haven't actually done that yet. Go me. Oh yeah, don't put my hand there. And then with 2 sets of the leg stands assembled, I now got to attach the side pieces to it, and well, let's see how this goes. I'm doing the best I can to get these side pieces on. It's like they're kind of tricky. There's probably a right way to do this, but I don't know what that is yet. Now, I originally wanted to keep as little metal out of the top frame as possible, so when I didn't want to screw the miter joints together, the idea there was in case when I'm using the jigsaw, if it does go outside the frame when I'm cutting, it can go into the wood and not have any serious issues. But if it were to hit like a steel bolt or a steel screw, that could be a bad day. That's why I was kind of hesitant in putting any kind of screws in it. But while I don't distrust wood glue, it's incredibly strong, I distrust my skills at gluing wood. I'm just going to put an extra screw in each of the 4 corners and call it done. So then with the top supports, I'm just going to run a few screws in each of these to hold them together. And we've just got a few last steps to build here. I'm taking the top frame supports and kind of adding them on where they should be according to my plans. Glue them down, clamp them in place, screw them, you know the drill. That's just how it is. There's a lot of clamp, glue, screw. I had the woodworking in, a pretty good nutshell. All right, well, we're almost done. We got one more thing to sort out. In my haste of building this, my legs aren't all the same length or something like that, or they're not square, or something basically happened to where obviously the table rocks, and I don't want that. Now, I did make sure the floor is not the issue. I moved this thing around in some other parts in the basement, and it still does this. So it's not like I'm sitting on a raised portion of the floor. So what I think is going on, you think of it as a lever. These 2 legs are on the ground, and these 2 legs are rocking back and forth, which would suggest that at the moment, these 2 legs are too tall. So I'm going to take my sander, kind of knock them down a little bit, not by a lot, and just kind of keep fiddling around, and it's a process of going back and forth, trying to figure out what legs are too long, sand them down, and go again and again until you have something that's fairly stable. So with a little bit of sanding, and I guess maybe a bit more than a little bit, this orbital sander here just tears through these 2x4s. I had to knock about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch off, I think it was these 2. Actually, no, probably the 2 that are like that. But regardless, whatever it was, it doesn't matter. I sanded them down, and you can see the stand is now nice and steady. Now, here's the most important part, though. An actual test cut. Here's an old piece of aluminum off Microflash Beta. So this is the actual first version of Microflash. I'm going to clamp this thing down, do a jigsaw test, and see if this thing actually works as a jigsaw stand. So with that, I would say job well done. I'm pretty happy how this worked out. The stand did shift a little bit during cutting, but it's quite a bit better than what I've had in the past, and I think it'll work very well for cutting out my future beetle weight and possibly ant weight frames for my combat robot. I've been thinking about making one of those as well. So while this was kind of a combat robot video, if you want to see more woodworking projects, you can go ahead and subscribe to me here on the Tabletop Battlefield. That's my show name. Robotics on YouTube. That's probably why I should be more helpful. So hit subscribe here on YouTube. Go ahead, that like button, share button, blah, blah, blah. You know how it goes. But like I mentioned in one of the last build episodes of Microflash, I will be doing a full tutorial on how I measure out and cut out a beetle weight combat robot frame using a jigsaw. I actually need to build this thing first, and that's what the holdup has been. So with that, thank you guys all for watching. Once again, I'm Jason. Have a great week.